Hello, this is Mr. Rasmussen with Algebra 1, lesson 110. In this particular lesson, we look at some shifts in our different graphed lines there, our nonlinear graph lines. And so first of all, let's review some of those shapes. If we see a squared show up inside of our graph, then we know we're graphing a parabola. Okay, if we have a cube show up, then we know we're graphing a little curved line, something like this. It's on the left side in the bottom and on the right side on the top. If we have a square root show up, then we have a distinct starting point and a line going out toward the right. And then if we have absolute value, then we have a V graphed line in there. Okay, so review those. You should be able to remember those from past lesson there and the shapes, and we're just simply identifying them in that lesson. All right, today's lesson is when we change the equation a little bit, how it actually shifts inside of the graph, and it's straightforward, very predictable. Okay, so first of all, we have our vertical shifts, the up and down. So if we take this first part here, x2, and then we simply make it two terms and do a +1 here, okay, then it's going to shift vertically up one space. So like this. Okay, it's going to shift up one space if we +1. If we were to do a +2, then it would shift up two spaces, and so forth. Okay? And same thing with all these. With this one here, x cubed +1. Same thing. We're going to go up the y-axis one spot, and that's where it's going to cross through. This one here, if it's a 1, it goes up to the one spot and starts. And same thing here with this one. Our point of the V is up one spot there. Okay, and that's, see, you have two terms here. You've added a term with the positive. All right, what happens if we, instead of doing a positive, we do a negative? Well, that should be maybe pretty clear to figure out. It's going to go down one space, okay, to a -1. It's going to go down one space if we have a -1 there. All right, that's shifts in the horizontal, or in the vertical. Let's look at shifts in the horizontal, okay? These ones will show up in the equation because they're connected. So we got two individual terms here. If we were to put x minus 1 parentheses and then the squared, so now we attach the -1 to the x before the squared. If we put it together like that, this, you could think of this as one term in the, or it's two terms in the parentheses, but I think the parentheses kind of make it one unit there in relation to the squared. This one is a shift left and right, and this one's going to be backwards. Okay, so here's center. What happens is if it's a -1, it's actually going to shift it toward the right one space and look like this at the +1 on the x line. Okay, and same thing for the rest of these. This guy would shift over one space, shift over, if we put the negative inside there. So you can see in your book there what that looks like. For the cube, same thing, it would be like x minus 1 parentheses cubed. This one's going to be square root -1 inside of the square root. That's a shift to the right one space. And then the absolute value is where we subtract 1 inside the absolute value. This is a horizontal shift. Okay, let's say we flip the sign though. Let's do x plus 1 squared. This means it's going to move to the left. So this is, there we go, -1 on the x side. It's going to move to the left one space. So that one's a little tricky because you got to remember that it's reversed. The +1 inside there actually moves it the negative direction, and the -1 moves it the positive direction. Okay, so those are the vertical and horizontal shifts. Let's work through the two example problems there. Example 1 says f of x is equal to the absolute value of x plus 3. So, sketch it on a graph. You can just write it inside your box there. So here's my graph. And first of all, I'm going to identify my shape. My shape is going to be my V up here. And then it's not connected, right? There's no parentheses. So that's a vertical shift. So 1, 2, 3, and put a dot and my line as far as that shift and graphing there. Shifted up 3 spaces. All right, let's look at example 2. Let me back up here a little bit. I don't run out of space on my paper. Example 2 is f of x is square root of x minus 3. Okay, so this one here, put my graph on there. Identify the square root as this guy's shape there. It's a -3 inside of the square root. It's connected to it. So that's actually going to be a horizontal shift, and it's opposite of the sign there. So that's coming over here to +3 on the x value. Put a dot and a line going out that way. Okay. The next part here is reflection. If we have -x squared, okay, we didn't add any numbers to it. We just simply put a negative in the front here. So it's like -x squared or -x cubed or a negative square root of x or a negative absolute value. What that's doing is going to flip it from top and bottom. So this one here is going to be inverted. Okay? And then like this one here, a little different. Instead of going this way, it's going to start up and go that way. We flipped. This one here is going to curve out. Now it's always going to curve toward the positive side on the x, but it's going to go down like that. And then the last one here gets flipped upside down, such as that. So the negative sign, it inverts it. Okay, let's look at that example there. So example 3 is f of x is equal to -x cubed. So basically, it's going to going from the top left to the bottom right. That is flipped top and bottom. Okay, then in our last part here, we can just have combinations where more than one thing is used. We could have the horizontal shift and a vertical shift, or we could have a horizontal shift and a reflection. So I'm just going to keep track of all the things going on and then put them in. All right, so example 4, f of x is equal to negative absolute value of x plus 3. Okay, so first of all, let's identify the shape. It's absolute value, so it's going to be my V shape. This negative is going to make a reflection or invert it, and then my plus 3 is not connected to it, so that's going to be a vertical shift. So if I put my line on there, my vertical shift is going to go up to the +3. Let's put a dot there, and then it's going to be an inverted V such as that. Okay, so we got the horizontal shift because of this, and then we got the flipping it because of that sign there. All right, we got 4 practice problems here. Let's work through those. Go ahead and try them yourself and then check your answers. So practice problem A is f of x is equal to x squared plus 3. Okay, my x squared identifies my parabola. It's a +3, so if I put my graph here, I'm going to do a vertical shift to the 3 and put in my parabola. There we go. All right, practice problem B. G of x is equal to parentheses x plus 3 squared. All right, so this time it's actually connected to it inside parentheses, so the 3 does apply to the square there, and so that's going to be a horizontal shift. So, and then remember, positive actually means toward the left, so I'm coming over here to -3 on the x, put a dot there, and put in my parabola. Okay, practice problem C. Practice problem C is h of x is equal to negative x squared. Alright, so this one here is a reflection. My x squared, once again, is my parabola. It doesn't move any shifting, so it's right at 0 and 0, and it does go upside down as a frown face there. Alright, and lastly, practice problem D. We have f of x is equal to absolute value of x, and f of x is equal to x plus 3 absolute value. Which of the following statements is true? Okay, so looking at this guy here, let's graph it first and then we'll compare that to what's going on. So if we graph this, it is connected to the line by the absolute value, so that's going to be a horizontal shift. So, and remember, horizontal shifts are opposite. So we're coming over here to -3, and then it's the absolute value. So it looks like it's going to go this way. Okay, so let's see which one of the statements correctly says that. Number 1 says it's shifted vertically 3 units up. Nope, we did not shift vertically. All right, number 4 says shift vertically down. We know we did not shift vertically. All right, number 2 says we shift horizontally 3 spaces to the right. Nope, we shifted 3 spaces to the left. So the correct answer for this one is label 3. Okay, if you have any questions, feel free to contact me, and I'll work through those with you. Have a great day.